Have you ever been standing in a supermarket aisle, just staring at a wall of products and felt completely overwhelmed? Well, you're not alone. And it turns out there's a fascinating economic story behind that feeling. A story that secretly shapes almost every choice you make. Today, we're going to solve that supermarket puzzle. Seriously, just think about it for a second. The toothpaste aisle is this explosion of different brands, all promising you the whitest teeth, the freshest breath. But then you walk over to the soda aisle, and it's pretty much a two-horse race, right? So what in the world is going on here? It seems like two completely different universes, but they're both run by some surprisingly clear economic rules.
Okay, so let's start with that jam-packed toothpaste aisle. This is the first piece of our puzzle, and it's a type of market that absolutely thrives on giving you what looks like infinite variety. It's called monopolistic competition.
So what does that actually mean in plain English? Well, it's a market where you have a ton of different sellers, and they're all selling stuff that's pretty similar, but just different enough. Think about restaurants. They all sell food, but you pick one over the other because of the vibe, the specific type of food, or the service. That little difference, that's the key. And here's how it all comes together to create that massive variety you see on the shelf. You've got tons of companies, so nobody really owns the market. And this is crucial. There are very few barriers to entry. If you've got a new idea for a fancy soap or a new style of t-shirt, you can jump into the game pretty easily. And because every product is just a little bit different, each company has a tiny bit of power to set their own price. For us, the shoppers, it means we get a ton of choices.
So really, if you remember one thing about this kind of market, it's this. The entire game is about making your product stand out from the crowd. It could be the branding, the packaging, a new flavor, or just a really clever ad campaign. That's how these companies fight for your money when what they're selling is, at its core, pretty similar to everyone else's.
And this is the reward for doing it well, at least in the short term. So, a company comes up with a great new toothpaste. Maybe it has some revolutionary whitening formula. For a little while, they're the only game in town for that feature. They get to charge a bit more and make what economists call supernormal profits. Basically, they're raking it in because they successfully made their product different.
But, remember those low barriers to entry we talked about? All that extra cash is like a giant flashing sign for other companies. Pretty soon, competitors launch their own versions of whitening toothpaste, the market gets more crowded, we get more options, and that original company's big slice of the pie starts to shrink. Over time, those extra profits get competed away until everyone's back to just making a normal profit again.
All right, so that totally explains the toothpaste aisle. A world full of lots of players all trying to be unique. Now let's pivot and compare that to the soft drink aisle. We're about to shift gears from a world of many small firms to a world run by just a few giants. And believe me, it is a whole different ballgame.
So welcome to the world of the oligopoly. This is where we find our soda giants, but it's also home to industries like car manufacturers, airlines, and steel producers. This is a market that's defined by the power of a very select few.
The definition here is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. A few big companies control pretty much everything. And trying to get into this exclusive club? It's tough. The barriers to entry are sky high. Just think about the insane amount of money you'd need to start a brand new car company or an airline. Yeah, exactly. This setup protects the big players from new competition. And this, right here, is the absolute key to understanding how an oligopoly works. The companies are all interdependent. When one of them makes a move, whether it's changing a price, launching a huge ad campaign, or releasing a new product, the others have to react. It's like a constant, high-stakes game of chess, where every single player is watching their opponent's every move. One wrong step could cost them millions.
Okay, so how does this strategic game actually play out in the real world? Well, to really get a feel for the tension and the strategy here, economists use a brilliant and classic scenario. And that scenario is the prisoner's dilemma. It's a simple story, but it perfectly captures why rival companies in an oligopoly often act in ways that seem kind of strange, and why it's so hard for them to cooperate, even when it would be better for everyone if they did.
Okay, let's break this down. Let's just think of the Conductor and Tchaikovsky as two rival soda companies. Now put yourself in the Conductor's shoes. If Tchaikovsky confesses, what's your best move? Well, you should confess too, right? You'll get 10 years instead of 25. Okay, but what if Tchaikovsky stays silent? Well, your best move is still to confess, because then you only get 1 year instead of 3. So no matter what your rival does, your best personal strategy is to confess. And guess what? Tchaikovsky is in the exact same boat, making the exact same calculation.
So what ends up happening? They both confess, and they both get 10 years. But here's the crazy part, the paradox of it all.
If they had just trusted each other and cooperated by staying silent, they would have only gotten 3 years each. By acting in their own self-interest, they both ended up with a way worse outcome. And that is the core dilemma for those big companies. Cooperating would be more profitable, but the temptation to undercut your rival to get ahead is just too strong.
This dilemma leads to this really interesting real-world behavior that economists call price stickiness. Here's how it works. Let's say one soda company decides to raise its prices. Its rivals will probably just sit back, keep their prices the same, and happily welcome all the new customers who just switched over. So the first company has to quickly drop its price back down. But what happens if a company lowers its price? You better believe its rivals are going to match that price cut almost immediately to avoid losing their customers. And the result? Nobody wants to start a price war, so prices tend to stay pretty stable or sticky.
So let's bring all of this back to where we started, standing in that supermarket aisle. Now we can see that this isn't just some abstract theory. It's the invisible blueprint behind all the choices you see on the shelves.
And here it is, the solution to our puzzle. That toothpaste aisle, it's a perfect example of monopolistic competition. You've got dozens of firms all fighting for your attention by making slightly different products, which gives you tons of options. But the soft drink aisle, that's a classic oligopoly. The giants are locked in this strategic game, competing less on tiny price changes and more on massive advertising budgets and building brand loyalty. It's a battle for your mind, not just your wallet.
So once you understand these two ideas, you kind of get a new pair of glasses for looking at the world. It explains why some industries seem to have endless innovation and new products popping up, while others seem to have the same big players and stable prices year after year. It's the hidden logic behind the ads you see and the price tags on the shelf.
And that leaves us with our last question to chew on. The next time you see a massive ad campaign for a new soda or a car, ask yourself, is this company really trying to offer me a better product, like we see in monopolistic competition? Or is this just the next strategic move in a high-stakes chess match, designed to outsmart a rival? The answer to that question tells you everything you need to know about the world they're playing in.